Right, hello everybody and welcome to Think Gin 2021. Today I'm delighted to spend 15 minutes with Warner's Gin founder Tom Warner to talk about how the team have managed to get that balance right between craft and scale. So hello Tom.
Hello.
Great that you can be here today. So we know that craft, premium and locally produced gins are popular, have been for a while. Consumers are out there seeking out those authentic messages. But many of these are small batch producers with gins that may not have listings on a national scale. Warner's, though, has managed to grow considerably since it started, and many would agree that it's a good example of a brand that has managed to maintain that craft image while also expanding beyond that small scale production. So my first question really is, when you started out looking at your forecasting models in the early days, did you always have a plan or a real aim to grow bigger than what we might consider to be small batch producer?
I think, yeah, it's all about context, isn't it, for your business? And you really need to set that context out from the start, because that will then drive every single decision. We always knew we were never going to be Diageo, because that's just never going to happen. Yeah. But we definitely had sort of unbounded ambition in terms of the growth that we were going to bring into the business. But I mean, the lens I would put over the top of that is that we had absolutely no experience in the beers, wines and spirits industry, and we'd never run our own company before. We'd never, when we were doing our business plan, we didn't even own a still at that point. So there was a huge amount that we had to learn. But what we had was, the passion and the drive to make it happen and to learn. Also, our context has always been to make the best possible liquid, and to do that, you need to use the best process, the best equipment, and the best ingredients to do so. So that's the cornerstone of what we're doing. And if that led to us gaining more orders, then that was a great thing. And the opportunity we saw within gin specifically, but I think spirits globally, if you roll back to 2009-10 when we were doing our original business plans, it was a completely different landscape. It was dominated by multinational businesses that owned all the relationships. They had the distribution models, and they still do. I mean, within craft, we're all fooling ourselves that we're causing them any sort of pain. They've all massively benefited from craft, because craft has legitimized all of the sort of the large produced products all around the world. But it was wide open for independent businesses to come on and steal a small amount of the rug by giving buyers that were out there a stick to beat their incumbent suppliers with. I mean, we are in danger, because if you look at a macro level in retail UK, the big brands are turning the screw back on now. They've worked out what craft is. They've made some acquisitions. They've replicated flavor profiles, and they already had enough volume, but they're hoovering back all of the sort of inroads that craft was making into them. So it's been quite interesting, but I think we had no idea. Interestingly, first 4 years of the business, we actually grew at the pace we thought we would grow within the business plan, which was probably, some would say, ambitious. I think to replicate that now, when the way the market's gone, would be really bloody difficult. But success turns luck into genius. That's what I like to say. We were very lucky because we started when we started. So launching in 2012, some would argue we were slightly behind the curve with the resources that we had. But actually, we benefited from the surge within gin. And because we were right at the start, we almost were able to write the narrative for that and actually create a lot of the excitement or the blueprint for what craft production is within the UK. We had a plan. Did we know how we were going to actually achieve that? No, is the reality. I'll be very honest with that. It was all bound by ambition, and yes, we're going to do this. If we'd had an adult in the room at the time that was industry experienced, they probably would have tempered that, and we may not have achieved what we ended up achieving, because you know, there's almost I like to say an infantile or blissful, you know, naivety is bliss, isn't it? When you don't truly understand the market, then well, anything's possible. And I think that's great for any entrepreneur to have that lens of, you know, when we started, there was no fear. It was going to happen. We were going to make this happen. It was going to be great, and our products were going to be fantastic. And really, that's what got Warner's to where we are today. But we were never bound by, we're going to cap our production at a certain level. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions, and sometimes I think as a nation we can do each other down quite successfully as Brits sometimes. And I think, when does a brand segue from being craft to not being craft? And, you know, we're actually more masochistic now in terms of how we make our liquids than we've ever been. We seem to constantly make even more complicated products that require even more ingredients to be grown from the farm, but we're selling more than we've ever sold. So it's at what point and what justification? Because there are lots of what I would describe as non-craft brands that sell probably 10% of the volume that we sell every year, whereas we are painfully craft in everything that we do. And craft is another word that we're never going to actually get to the bottom of, are we? I think we should, you know, Alex from East London Liquor Company, he always tears it down as, you know, they're not craft. And I think it's true, you know, what is craft? Unfortunately, it's become an overused and abused marketing term, small batch. But if that's the context of your business, then that's great. You know, if you're only ever going to sell to people locally to you, and you're happy with that, then that's fine as well. So it's all to back to what I said at the start, the context of the business. Ours has always been make the best liquid you possibly can, but that's irrespective of how much we sell.
Excellent. I mean, I was going to ask you next what kind of challenges you face. It sounds a bit like you've set your own challenges as you've gone along, and increasingly put more challenges in place. I suppose one of the points I wanted to ask really was, when you started to really grow out of any small scale, and it was growing in popularity, and you obviously had to ramp up production at that point. Some producers would perhaps look at how they could cut costs to balance that out, or changing suppliers, which is different for you if you're starting from being your own suppliers, I suppose. Did you have to make any difficult decisions during those stages?
I think there's loads of difficult decisions as you move forward as a business, but you know, we're proud of the fact we've never really cut corners. I suppose one of the things we have changed, and it's really a mindset change of understanding. For me, we do slightly bigger batches when we're distilling now than we used to, and I really do mean slightly bigger. They're probably 3 times the size, because we only ever did one shot. And when you start a craft gin distillery, it's sort of a mantra that you live and die by, that ours are one shot. But do you know what? It's been an education for me, because one shot's actually the easiest form of making gin. And going into a concentrated multi-shot is really, really bloody difficult when you're scaling up. And we've got quite small kit. We didn't have the space to put in additional equipment. We're now up to 4 stills at the farm, but 2 of those are actually quite small, and they're more for trial or limited editions. We've got two 500-litre stills, and using them efficiently and scaling that up has actually meant that you need to put more skill into that. So that's probably one, I would say, compromise, but actually it drives consistency into your operation. It's probably better for consistency of products moving forward. It's better for the environment, because you know, you prorata your gas usage per bottle produced from a distillation, and you know, you can easily do a carbon calculation of what you're doing there. So that's one thing that we've done, but we're doing it very willingly, because we believe it to be the right thing to do for product quality and for the environment. But we're still doing relatively small batches with that as well, compared to, you know, the guys that are producing these global brands. But other than that, we've probably become more sort of, as I've said it already, masochistic when we're making our products. You know, there's our London Dry this summer. There's a recipe tweak, because that's now finally going to become farm born. We've got ahead of the curve. We've expanded our growing on the farm by 200% this year. So huge amount more plants went in the ground last year just to try and get, so we can finally make the claim of self-sufficient in our London dry gin with 3 of the botanicals that go into that. And it's, that's a really difficult process. When you're working with Mother Nature, you're at the whims of the weather. And at the moment, the launch of that liquid is probably going to be delayed slightly because of the frost we've had in the last 7 days. But for us, we believe we get a better liquid from growing the ingredients and harvesting them when we want them. So it makes your life a lot harder, but it is the best thing for the liquid. And again, it's all about the context for your brand. Many of the craft brands, in fact, exclusively, probably nearly all of them that have sold by now of the early starters, if you break it down, those guys started those businesses to build and sell. That was always the dream and the ambition, and that's not our dream or ambition. So we're not looking to cut corners and maximize profit. We're looking to always make the best possible liquid for the consumers. And it's all about setting the context of your business. And if your goal is to launch a spirits business, to launch a gin brand today, and then sell it to Diageo in, 5 years' time, then you're going to make certain decisions on that journey to maximize your volumes as quickly as possible and probably maximize your profitability within that to drive a multiple. That seems to be sort of an industry standard thought process if you have to do this. I think craft's a bit more beautiful than that. The small producers, it's my name's on the bottle. It's the pride and passion that goes into every single product that we produce, and it's that care and effort. So yeah, we've not really cut corners. If anything, we make our lives as way harder than they need to be, and specifically within flavored gin, which has exploded and is now roughly 40% of the gin category. Love it or loathe it. It kind of originated from our farm in terms of the elderflower and the rhubarb that we launched to the market. Unfortunately, it's like Pandora's box being opened, and there's the spawn of Satan that's plaguing sort of a lot of retail spaces at the moment. But general public UK is buying it in very large numbers. All of these synthetically flavoured or flavoured alcohols that have probably not even been through a still. It's just ethanol, water, and flavourings and sugar, which is quite saddening to see, especially for all the small producers that are out there. The way we make a flavoured gin, it's a London dry gin that has real fruit juice added to it. That's in essence how it's done at the farm, and some of those crops are grown here at the farm, but you're working with nature, you're at the behest of nature, and if sugar's added, it's because you need to balance acidity rather than just making an alcopop. I think it could be easy when the category is being dominated now by products that are cutting corners. It's probably could be quite tempting for the craft guys to go down that road, but I think then it all becomes meaningless. And what is craft and what are small producers? Small producers are there to shine a light on the big guys, and it's our efforts that, although we do not have the power, we're never going to beat them, we're never going to win. It's still holding the sort of the heat to their feet to try and push the quality aspect of the category always upwards. In answer to your question, no, we seem to make our lives harder along the journey, which is counterintuitive. But again, I think it's corporate versus small businesses owned by real people, and you have different contexts for why you're doing things.
Excellent. And I mean, it sort of leads to my final question, where I just wanted to ask specifically about your focus on sustainability that you've got there and have had from the early days. So we have a discussion later on today about sustainable and ethical brands, which is perhaps more talked about by gin producers than some of the other spirit categories. And we will be talking about whether consumers are recognising those authentic messages out from those that perhaps not so authentic. Your focus was really there from before you even started, really, from the way that you started. Do you think it's one of the keys to your success in sort of keeping that image?
I think it will be in the future.
Yeah.
I think key to success at this stage, no, I don't think it was. And I genuinely, we're putting a huge amount of effort into it, and there are some amazing examples within the gin category because of the entrepreneurialism that's out there. You've got some guys that are way ahead of us in terms of their journey, but when you're starting from a blank piece of paper, you can do that really quickly and really efficiently. So I think the advantage, because of the entrepreneurialism within the category, the younger the business, the easier to increase that percentage of your focus to sustainability. We really got stuck into it, I suppose. 2016 is when we really started to really hammer it into the business. Last year, we became 1% for the Planet members, so 1% of our revenues, not profit, so it's above the line. That goes to environmental issues around the world, but ours are really focused into the UK. And we've just yesterday actually submitted our B Corp application. So we're on the journey to becoming a B Corp certified business as well. And within that, there's a huge amount, and this is all a journey. And what we need to remember is, because some people, I think, could try and use green and environmentalism as point scoring for commercial gain. And the reality is it should just be business. It's about looking at the triple bottom line. It's about investing for the future. And, you know, most business is focused on how much money you make. And I think that's why we're in the position we're in with the planet. And we all need to be thinking about, you know, environmental issues, what it's actually cost in terms of people, in terms of planet, etc. when we're looking at a bottom line. So you may have made a profit, but Mother Earth may be in a massive loss as a result. So there's a whole evolution to go through. But it's really exciting that gin is this beacon at the moment. I think it's also starting to happen quite rapidly in rum. The rum category is following suit. And I think that's because of the energy that's within gin. Has it driven our sales up until now? No, I don't think it has. And you know, to the products that we've got direct payments, which is part of our 1%, are our most successful ones in terms of money contributions going. So I don't think it's a driver with the consumer at the moment. It should be a driver for every business person on the planet, because very quickly, you know, with climate crisis that's emerging, profitability is going to be really difficult, because if our habitats that we're all living in, if people are migrating from all in different parts of the world, I feel like I'm getting quite preachy now, but you know, this is something that it should just be day to day within business, and everybody's on a journey, hopefully, within this. And it's not about being, because there's some big brands that have come out and said they want to be the, you know, the number one X, the most ethically sourced gin. I won't name names, but it's not about being number one. It's about everybody being as good as they can be to sort of to behave in a responsible way. So we try and distance ourselves from financial point scoring within that. You just try and do your best. And as you know, we've had a couple of great wins recently this year in the Footprint Sustainability Awards. We got a couple of awards there. I think we were the most nominated business within that, and it's just a really exciting, soul enriching space to be in for anyone that's in business. If you can have a business, reduce your footprint on the planet, employ people, make some money at the end of the day, and strive to be better, I think that's what we all just need to be doing. It shouldn't be isolated to gin, but all of the craft guys have the unique position to being very young businesses, which means they can put it at the center of what they're doing, and just be a business that's a force for good.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for all of your comments there. I think we've reached the end of our 15-minute slot, and it sounds like the team has always been passionate from the start about everything you grow and create and build there, and it'd be great to hear more about that over the future of what you're up to next. Thanks for coming on today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom.